She wasn't pacing. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. Jenny Slatton was just sitting at the edge of the bed, quietly folding her teal blouse like she was packing for a weekend trip. Except it wasn't for a weekend. And it wasn't temporary. This was the final pack. The one that ends a decade, no warnings, no scenes, just silence. The kind of silence that comes after 1,000 nights spent begging to be chosen and finally realizing no one's coming to save you. In the next room, Sumit Singh had no idea he was living the last normal minutes of his relationship. He casually hummed a tune as he boiled chai on the stove, completely unaware that a one-way plane ticket to the United States had already been booked for today. Jenny was leaving India. Not for a visit, forever, and she hadn't told him yet. For viewers who've followed this couple since the early seasons, their love had always been a tug-of-war between hope and heartbreak. Jenny believed she could wait forever. That love would eventually conquer the mess, the family disapproval, the cultural backlash, the bureaucratic chaos, but forever costs energy. And Jenny had nothing left to give. She sniffled softly into her sleeve, barely making a sound, but it was enough. Sumit called out from the kitchen, "Jenny, chai is ready." No answer. He frowned and waited. Still nothing. Then he heard the barely audible sound again. Soft, broken, like someone trying hard not to fall apart. He set both mismatched cups of chai on a tray and walked toward the bedroom, still smiling, still unaware. The second he entered, his body froze. The smile vanished instantly. Jenny was crouched over an open suitcase, folding her clothes slowly but deliberately. Her hand trembled only slightly as she tucked her blouse next to an old scarf she once wore on their first temple visit together. She didn't look up. "What are you doing?" The tone in his voice cracked. Not anger. Fear. Jenny finally looked at him. Her usually animated eyes were dull, glassy, like she wasn't fully there, but also more grounded than ever before. She said nothing at first. Just looked. Pause. Every cameraman in the room knew something was about to happen. Real reality. Not the kind they prod cast members into for better footage. This didn't need a cue, or music, or edits. This was raw, and everyone felt it. Sumit took a step closer, squinting at the suitcase. "Where are you going?" His voice was still light, still hoping it was something fixable. Maybe a weekend break. Maybe she needed space. Something temporary. And then she whispered it. "I'm going home." He blinked, confused. "Home? What do you mean, home?" A second passed. Jenny didn't hesitate. "To America." Her voice was soft, but it hit like a bomb. You could hear the mic distortion when Sumit's breathing stuttered. He sat down on the edge of the bed, slowly, like his legs no longer trusted him to walk. Everything, the walls, the clothes, the air, suddenly felt unreal. "You booked a flight?" he asked. Jenny nodded. "For today." Silence. Sumit stared at her hands. She was packing the same way she had unpacked 100 times in this very room. But this time, the motion wasn't nervous or temporary. It was final. Her blouse wasn't folded with care to be placed back later. It was folded like she might never see it again. She didn't even try to stop her tears this time. But she didn't sob either. Just let them fall and fall. Not dramatic, not performative. Just true. Sumit looked around the room like he was trying to find another version of what he was seeing. Like if he kept blinking, the suitcase would vanish and tea would still be hot in the kitchen. His voice got smaller. "Why didn't you tell me?" Jenny folded another scarf, the floral one Sumit bought her at a street market 4 years ago when they were still hiding their relationship from his parents. "Because," she finally said, "if I did, I wouldn't be able to leave." And then it clicked for him. His breathing changed. His eyes widened. This wasn't temporary. She wasn't threatening. She was going, and she had made peace with it. Even if he hadn't. Sumit's breath caught in his throat. "Today? Your flight is today?" His voice cracked open, the disbelief curling into panic. He looked at her suitcase again, then at her wet cheeks. That dull teal blouse? folded too neatly. The way she wasn't blinking. She meant every word. You didn't even tell me, he repeated, louder this time, hoping she'd give him something to work with. An opening, some venom he could fight against. One of her usual emotional bursts that meant she hadn't given up. But that's what terrified him. There was nothing to argue with. Jenny just stood there, calmly zipping the middle section of the suitcase. And that zipper, that sound. It broke something in the room. No, no, no. You can't do this. Sumit dropped to his knees, grabbing her hands while she still held a rolled-up kurta. Jenny, please, talk to me. Don't walk away like this. We didn't even fight. What happened? What changed? Just tell me what to fix. She leaned back slightly, her face sharp with sadness, but not surprise. Nothing changed. That's the problem. He froze for a beat. That reply hit his chest like a shovel. I've been begging for change for how many years, Sumit? Her hands didn't pull away from his, but they didn't return the grip either. I waited for your family to accept me. I waited for you to marry me without hiding. I waited for you to pick me out loud. And I waited through every apology, every promise, after every breakdown. He shook his head, wiping tears from his jaw. But I kept fighting. I didn't give up. Jenny cut in, her tone low. Sumit, you didn't fight. You delayed. The air flipped. Every time I begged you to stand up for me, you told me soon. You promised to talk to your parents. You promised you'd make it official. I faked being okay while waiting for a version of you that kept stalling. In the background, the cameras zoomed in like they felt their own sting. Every longtime viewer already recognized that this was years of pent-up grief, not a tantrum. This wasn't about one fight. This was about accumulated silence. When did I become your secret again? She asked. Sumit's face twitched. You're not my secret. She didn't argue, just looked away. There were so many receipts, years piled high. Fans would remember the times he lied to his parents. The time he told producers he had a plan, then did absolutely nothing. The way his mom threatened self-ruin if he stayed with Jenny. And the way Sumit blinked and said, I can't go against her. You've been saying that for years, Sumit, Jenny said. And I'm tired of pretending we're going somewhere. He stood and began pacing, dizzy with panic. I'll fix it now, Jenny. Just tell me what to do. I swear. I'll call my parents. I'll make a move right now. Don't leave. Don't get on that plane. Jenny shook her head. We could have done this 2 years ago, maybe even 5, but not now. She looked up at him and said, without blinking, My flight is in 2 hours. Sumit's pupils widened. His mouth opened, but no sound came. And for the first time ever, Jenny didn't cry. But Sumit did, and it shattered the silence. Sumit stepped back, visibly shaking. His mind was racing, rewinding, scrambling for the last time he had a grip on this relationship. 2 hours. This was not a breakup. They were already mid-break. He saw her suitcase like a coffin for everything they had built, even if it never stood long on solid ground. A decade, undone by one zipper, one morning, one flight. I'll come with you, he blurted. I promise. I'll move to America. We'll start over, anywhere you want. Jenny didn't even flinch. I'll talk to my parents again. I'll tell them this time they don't get a choice. I'll shut everyone down. No more explaining, no more listening to their drama, just us, like we always said. Jenny looked at him with tired eyes, not skeptical, just painfully clear. She sat down slowly, folding her hands into her lap. You won't, she said quietly. You never do. Sumit opened his mouth, closed it. He had no comeback. She wasn't wrong. Just 2 months ago, he promised to confront his mom again. It turned into another car ride of excuses. Another meal shared in silence. Meanwhile, Jenny stood on the terrace alone, begging confessionals for a sign she mattered. This wasn't defensive Jenny. Not the Jenny who used to scream during visa threats or cry on the floor while Sumit paced. This Jenny, she was past panic. Her voice didn't rise. Her hands didn't tremble. She detached, and that was so much worse than anger. You always wait until the last second, she said. You say the right things when you're cornered. Not because you've changed, but because you don't want to lose what you're used to. He tried to argue, but she kept going. You only know how to fight when my bags are packed. He fell to his knees again, clutching her thighs, pressing his forehead to her lap like prayer. I do love you. I was scared, that's all. I didn't want to lose my family. I thought we had more time. We had 10 years, Sumit. Her voice cracked. Not from weakness, but from carrying that truth too long. And every single time I thought, it's okay. This time he'll do it. He'll finally stand up for the relationship. And every single time, I waited. The room felt impossibly still. Even the cameraman, breathing shallow behind the lens, knew this wasn't the kind of fight that rebounds. It was the excavation of everything that never got resolved. Jenny looked down at him, touching his hair like she had done hundreds of times before, during immigration interviews, family fallouts, and post-fight reconciliations. But I'm different now, she said. I don't have energy left to wait for your next promise. Sumit wiped his face with both palms, frustration building under the sorrow. But I'm doing it now. You said you wanted me to fight. This is me fighting. Just tell me what to do right now, and I'll do it. Jenny paused, soft but firm. Where was all this yesterday? He blinked, stunned. I didn't make this decision overnight, she said. I've cried alone in that guest room where your parents made me sleep like I was your tenant. I've begged them, smiling through their glares, hoping I'd someday be enough for them to treat me like your wife. But you let them treat me like part-time baggage. Sumit started to interject, voice growing loud. Jenny raised her hand, not in anger, but as a boundary. Don't try to fix this by saying what I've always wanted to hear. Not after so many years of silence. He looked destroyed. He reached again for her suitcase as if keeping it unzipped would pause time. But Jenny stood up with unsettling calm, bent at the waist, and slowly dragged the zipper across. That sound filled the entire room. And somehow, it was louder than either of their voices. Inside Sumit's head, none of this made sense. Just 12 hours ago, they were eating together. There was no shouting, no passive-aggressive snipes, not even a side glance with hidden tension. They had doll, sat in silence, scrolled through their phones. For him, that was peace. For her, apparently, it was the last straw before takeoff. He stood in the middle of the room like a man hit mid-sentence. But we didn't fight, Jenny. Last night was calm. You didn't say anything. I was done saying things, she replied. He blinked again. To him, silence had always meant safety. In his world, when Jenny wasn't crying, it meant the storm had passed. In hers, it meant she'd accepted that the storm was never going to end. The dinner he saw as proof they were okay was actually her funeral meal for everything she'd held on to. Her quiet wasn't peace. Her quiet was mourning. He collapsed back onto the bed, rubbing his eyes like he could reset the situation. I thought we were fine. You thought we were quiet, she corrected. But you never asked why. His first tear rolled down without warning. Jenny didn't move toward him. He sniffled once, hard, swallowing the lump that had started climbing his throat with every one of her sentences. This wasn't a guilt trip. This was the last few pages of a chapter he thought they'd never close. I didn't know it had gotten this bad. It didn't get this bad, she said. It's been this bad. I just stopped showing it. He covered his face with both hands, now full body shaking. His shoulders hunched, his breath short. When he opened his eyes again, she was still packing. Calm, steady. Like his breakdown wasn't an earthquake, just weather that came too late. And here was the real kicker. He knew this had been coming. In some corner of his mind, he'd been watching her soften in ways that meant she was slowly detaching. But he told himself over and over that if she didn't leave yet, she never really would. 10 years of broken milestones had conditioned him to believe Jenny would always be there. That emotional emergencies could be postponed like dentist visits. Now, he wanted to fix it all. With less than 2 hours on the clock, this man had a decade to commit and solve something as basic as publicly prioritize your wife. Now he's standing there, shocked that a tear-soaked promise at the finish line isn't enough to erase a race he ghosted on. I'll do better, he keeps repeating, louder now. I'm ready now. Tell me what to change. I swear. Jenny's tone didn't shift. She wasn't being cruel. She was being final. I've told you for years. Sumit dropped to his knees again, forehead against her leg, arms wrapped tight around her. Jenny, don't go. Please, I'll go with you. I swear. They don't even talk to me anymore. I'll disappear if I have to. Let me prove it. She placed her hand on his head. I know you love me, Sumit, but love without action is like chai without heat. You can pour it, serve it, talk about making it, but no one's drinking cold tea. He started sobbing again, louder this time, breath stuttering. The kind of crying you can't fake for cameras. Real, raw devastation, and not because she was leaving, but because he finally realized she truly was. Suddenly, Sumit's realizing love doesn't work like a remote. You can't hit pause for years and expect someone to stay on the same channel. Then, from outside, came a short, sharp honk. Jenny froze. She didn't need to check. You could see it in her face. That sound wasn't a surprise. It's here, she whispered. The wheels of Jenny's suitcase scraped across the uneven floor. Each click a countdown no one could stop. She didn't slam doors, didn't rush. The walk from the bedroom to the front door wasn't long, but it felt like crossing a minefield. Behind her, Sumit stumbled after her, still barefoot, still shaking, still convinced he could talk her out of what she'd already emotionally filed as done. The door creaked, slow and heavy. Jenny didn't look back. Her finger pressed softly against the wood as she pushed it open. The sun poured in, harsh and indifferent. For the first time in years, she didn't wince at leaving the comfort of that shadowy apartment. She welcomed it. In the distance, the taxi waited. A plain white sedan, dust-coated, windows down. The driver sat still, both hands on the wheel, unaware he was about to witness the slow-motion ruin of a 10-year love story. Again, the horn. Less a honk now, more a reality check. Sumit burst forward, voice shaking. Jenny, please, don't go like this. This isn't how we end. She didn't stop walking. Her suitcase caught on a crack in the concrete. She adjusted, kept moving. Every little hiccup in the wheels echoed loudly. No background music needed. The sound of inertia you can hear in your chest. Behind the cameras, the crew wasn't saying much, just following. A producer whispered to someone off mic, "Don't cut. Keep eyes on her. This is real. This is fucking real." Sumit caught up outside the gate. His feet were blackened with dust, his hair a mess, his voice rising with every step. You can't leave without... We didn't even say goodbye. You can't... This isn't it, Jenny. Say something. Yell at me. She finally turned toward him, her face fragile, but her walk uninterrupted. You want me to yell at you so you can feel less guilty? I just don't understand. He snapped, tears streaming now. Why like this? Why not tell me last week? Or last night? Or even this morning? I've told you, she said, slower now. Every time I cried. Every time I asked for us to move forward. But you didn't listen until I stopped screaming. Sumit's breath hitched. His mouth trembled, clutching at arguments he'd used so many times they now sounded like noise even to him. This wasn't about love anymore. They both knew that. It was about survival. Jenny had reached her emotional expiration date, and no apology could rewind time to before she gave herself permission to walk away. Most fans had always wondered, does Sumit not care, or is he just gutless? Watching him now, chasing her down barefoot in the Delhi heat, crying in front of cameras, neighbors, and his own pride, it's clear. Sumit wasn't emotionally cold. He was emotionally avoidant. A chronic dodger. He didn't feel less. He just felt it too late. India wasn't the only thing Jenny was leaving behind. She was leaving the version of herself who kept waiting for him to grow up. He grabbed her wrist gently, not forcefully, but with the desperation of someone holding onto the edge of a cliff. She didn't yank away, but she did stop walking. Jenny, please, don't get in that car. She turned to him one last time. Her voice was frayed, but even. I don't want to hurt you. She paused. Let the words settle. But staying hurts me more. Inside the taxi, the door clicked shut with a soft finality. Jenny let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her hand trembled on her lap. Her other arm wrapped tightly around her purse, like it was the only stable thing left. The driver glanced at her in the mirror, said nothing, just started the engine with a low rumble. The car didn't move, yet, but the moment already had. Tears slid down her cheeks silently. No sobbing, no gasps. The kind of crying where your body's given up on arguing. She looked out at the gate, the fading apartment behind her, and what still stood inside it, 10 years of moments, both beautiful and deeply unpaid for. Her voice, in voiceover, soft, almost like thinking aloud. How do you choose between hurting someone you love and hurting yourself? Because that's what the choice had always been. Not Sumit or no Sumit, but Sumit plus invisibility. Sumit plus daily negotiations for respect. Sumit plus waiting. Waiting for his courage to catch up with her sacrifices. The driver, older, calm, picked up on her shaking. Spoke like someone who'd seen many stories unfold in the backseat of his vehicle. Life rarely gives you easy choices, he said gently in broken English. Only the ones you can live with. Jenny nodded, barely. Her chest tightened. Her eyes flicked back up to the apartment one more time. And for longtime fans, this was the rewind moment. Viewers knew what wasn't being shown right now, but could be felt in every tear. The night his mom refused to eat if Jenny stayed under the same roof. The time her tourist visa ran out and she had to leave, again, while he still hadn't told his family the full truth. The couch she slept on for weeks while Sumit played negotiator between her and his parents down the hall. The moment he finally married her, but didn't celebrate it publicly for weeks. The time his family demanded she act like a guest at her own engagement. Sacrifice was not new to her. But sacrificing her sense of self? That was the final line. And Jenny realized she had crossed it a long time ago. Only now she was choosing to walk back. Would you stay if you were constantly treated like a stranger in your own home? Jenny didn't fall out of love. She fell out of energy to fight for it alone. Just as the car jolted gently into motion, a shadow moved across the passenger window. Barefoot, breathless, voice cracking. Sumit. He ran alongside the taxi, banging on the door with the flat of his hand, his voice all broken. Stop, please, Jenny. The driver braked. Slowly. Sumit leapt in front of the car. His hair stuck to his forehead, his shirt soaked in sweat, his eyes red with panic and sobs. I'm begging you, he said, stepping to the door and pressing his palm to the window. If you close this door, I'll never forgive myself. Sumit's voice broke into a whisper, barely audible through the glass. If you leave, I'll never forgive myself. Jenny didn't reach for the door immediately. She didn't cry again. Her hand hovered over the handle, motionless. Inside, her chest was pounding, but her face was calm. There was nothing romantic about this last stand. This wasn't a movie. It was the part no one wants to watch. The unraveling, after everyone thought they'd made it. She finally pressed the window button. It lowered a few inches. Enough for air, enough to speak. Not enough to let him pull her back in. His face, raw and wet, filled the opening. Please, don't go. I'll lose everything if you leave. You're my wife. You're everything to me. Her eyes searched his face. Not in hope, in memory. The 1,000 versions of this same man across different years. Promising, pleading, telling her what she meant after she'd already been made to feel like a secret. An outsider, an added weight no one wanted to carry, but no one dared let go of either. I know you love me, Jenny said softly. That was never the problem. Then why are you leaving? His voice rose despite himself. His hands curled into the edge of the door, knuckles white. Why now? She looked past him for a second at the cracked sidewalk, the iron gate closing her past behind her. Because your love didn't come with protection, she said. He blinked, stunned. What? I've loved you more than I've loved anyone, she said. But I've never felt protected by you. Loved? Yes. Defended? No. The silence hung in the air longer than either wanted. He stammered, I should have married you without hesitation. She nodded slightly. You should have. He broke into another wave of sobs, collapsing against the car, turning the humiliating moment completely public. Neighbors peeked from balconies. The production team whispered frantically behind the camera. Crew members stood frozen. But Sumit didn't care who was watching. His shame had already been aired long before today. This was just the part he couldn't script his way out of. But Jenny didn't reach out through the window. She didn't rub his hand. She didn't bend and rescue him from this collapse. She just breathed, because she had done all the reaching before. And here was the tragedy. Sumit did love her. Everyone knew it. He had cried for her, defied immigration rules for her, married her behind closed doors despite threats. But the problem was never whether he loved Jenny. It was whether he ever chose her loudly enough that others had to accept it. And the answer, over 10 years, over multiple seasons, rejections, interventions, and whispered apologies, was no. Love, without security, turns into risk. And Jenny had been at risk the whole time, for rejection, displacement, invisibility. While Sumit tried to balance being a son and a husband silently, Jenny was left carrying his indecision like a full-time job. She leaned slightly toward the window and said quietly, You made me choose between you and my peace too many times. But we were us, he said, his voice hoarse. We made it through everything. She didn't smile. There was no comfort in that memory anymore. Too many battles, too few wins, too high a cost. Nothing is supposed to feel like war every day, she replied. Not even love. She paused, eyes locking with his. Especially not love. And then she asked the one question he'd never prepared for. The kind you don't yell, but the kind that shatters you if it's asked softly enough. Then why wasn't I enough for you to choose me when it mattered? His mouth moved, but nothing came out. Maybe he was still wondering. Maybe he'd told himself a love could be quiet and still count. That begging his parents once or twice was enough. That keeping her around, even in secret, was proof that she mattered. But Jenny wasn't asking why he didn't love her louder. She was asking why he didn't protect her like his equal. Why did she have to beg to be seen? Why did she fight harder than him to be accepted in a relationship that was supposed to already be mutual? And that's when he stopped trying to respond. Because every memory jumped into focus. The times he made her lie to his family, the times he let his mother insult her as unworthy, the times he asked for just a little more time. From his knees, he finally whispered something broken. I was scared. She closed her eyes. I know. And that was the saddest part. She always knew. And she thought she could wait it out. But love that constantly waits becomes a question, not a bond. It becomes a negotiation table, a performance, a slow evaporation. Love isn't meant to be a lifelong negotiation, especially with the people not in the relationship. She turned slightly, let her hand drop fully onto the door handle. Sumit stood still, mouth trembling. Please don't leave, he said one last time. Jenny's final words weren't a scream. They were thinner than air and hit harder because of it. You didn't choose me soon enough. Then she closed the door. And even the sound of it felt heavier than before. The moment the taxi pulled away, Sumit broke. He slammed his hand against the side of the door as it started to roll forward, stumbling after it like he could physically stop time from moving. Jenny didn't look back right away. She couldn't. She knew if she did, even for a second, her resolve might crack. And she couldn't afford cracks this time. That's how she got stuck in the first place. Jenny, his voice rang out, louder than it had been all morning. Jenny, please, wait. He ran barefoot across the uneven pavement, chasing the car while the camera crew tried to keep up, their lenses shaking, crew members dodging traffic just to stay locked in. This wasn't staged. This wasn't even blocked or planned. This was raw instinct, watching a man sprint down a dusty lane as though he could still save the love he sat on for a decade. In the back seat, Jenny pressed her forehead against the cool glass, her hand tight around her suitcase handle. Her lips trembled. Her shoulders started shaking again, but she didn't make a sound. The tears ran freely, but quietly. Her mouth opened slightly, and for the first time in minutes, her voice returned. "I didn't want to hurt him," she whispered, "but I couldn't stay broken to keep him whole." Outside, Sumit kept running. He screamed her name so loudly, a neighbor stepped out from a small alley to see what was happening. His cries sounded less like a plea now, and more like a breakdown unraveling in slow motion. One hand reached toward the back window. Jenny finally turned to look, just for a second. Their eyes met through the glass, and that moment, that pause, that silence, it was their real ending. Because she waited, not for the car to stop, but for him to finally say something he hadn't already said 100 times before. She needed something new, a real shift. Not panic, not begging, not guilt. But he had nothing left and everything all at once, and it all broke out of him in sobs. Then he dropped to his knees, mid-street. As the car turned the corner, face in his hands, body slumped so low, he looked like the shadow of who he'd been just moments earlier. Inside the car, Jenny couldn't breathe. She was somewhere between heartbreak and relief. There was no joy in this escape, no satisfaction. This wasn't winning. This was choosing survival when love asks you to keep bleeding. A choice no one wants to make. A choice often misunderstood by the people who never had to make it. For viewers who have followed Jenny since the very beginning, the contrast is painfully sharp. Remember those old clips of her arriving in India, smiling nervously through airport crowds, searching for Sumit's face with hope spilling out of her eyes? The giggles, the small hand squeezes, the belief that love was enough? Now she was the one leaving. No butterflies, no hugs. Only a muted goodbye to a life she once fought tooth and nail to keep. In some parallel world, maybe this played out differently. Maybe Sumit chose years ago. Maybe Jenny got to bake in kitchens where she wasn't treated like a threat. Maybe they didn't give the best years of their lives defending themselves from people who never wanted them to happen. But that world doesn't exist here. And in this one, the bravest thing she ever did was leave. "I kept thinking it would get better," she whispered, staring down at her lap while the driver shifted gears. "And at some point, I started living off hope instead of peace." She held her ring, yes, the same one he gave her during their first reconciliation, and turned it slowly on her finger. "I waited too long," she said, to no one, to herself, to the version of the audience she knew would judge her. "But if I waited any longer, I wouldn't survive this." The driver, still mostly silent, glanced up at her through the mirror, his eyes kind. A few seconds of quiet passed before he said, "Madam, you are brave. Even love needs a limit." The car hit a speed bump. No one spoke. A producer sitting in the passenger seat wiped his own eyes with the back of his hand. Not from the camera shot, not for drama, but because the reality hit everyone in that cab differently. They'd filmed bedroom fights, tears in markets, awkward dinners with enraged in-laws, but today wasn't reality TV. Today, one of the producers was caught whispering to their mic, "This wasn't filming. That was real life saying goodbye." And viewers could feel it. This wasn't one of those fake final breakups with dramatic walkouts and music behind it. This was quieter, sadder. The closure that doesn't come with applause. The kind that tastes like loss on both sides. Because here's a truth not everyone wants to hear. Love isn't always enough. Not if it keeps costing you your worth. Not when the person who claims to love you can't shield you from harm. Or worse, can't stand up when your name is disrespected right in front of them. And if walking away looks like a betrayal, that's because no one noticed how many times she tried to stay before she finally left. Because Jenny didn't wake up and decide to go. She woke up and finally didn't talk herself out of it. That window didn't close all at once. It closed inch by inch. After every broken promise, after every silent night on the couch, after every time she bit her tongue to keep the peace he never fought to protect. Back on the street, Sumit sat on the curb now, his arms limply over his knees, eyes completely hollow. His friend tried to help him up, off camera. He pushed the hand away. "I waited too long," he kept muttering. "I waited too long." Nobody argued, nobody had the heart to. Because it was true. Now the road ahead is wide open. Will he follow after her? Will he finally make the impossible choice he should have made long ago? Or is this the goodbye that pushes him to grow into the man she always hoped he'd become? That decision, if it comes, won't be made on reality TV. But you better believe, the next time they see each other, if they do, it'll be the real sequel nobody's ready for. Now, the biggest question, will Sumit actually follow her? Or will this breakup be the final straw that finally makes him choose something he never could before?